July 2nd, 1943. The sun burns over Sicily. A German Focke-Wulf fighter cuts through the sky above Castell Vetrano airfield. Its pilot never sees the P-40 Warhawk diving from above until a burst of bullets rips through his wings. In seconds, the German plane spins down, trailing smoke, and crashes into the fields below. The man who fired those shots is First Lieutenant Charles Hall, 22 years old, from Brazil, Indiana. That afternoon, Hall becomes the first Black American pilot in history to shoot down an enemy aircraft. His victory will soon carry a symbol, a small painted swastika, under the cockpit of his plane. Proof that something impossible has just happened.
For years, the Nazis had preached that black people were less than human, unfit for complex machines, too weak for war. Their laws even banned marriages between Germans and people of African descent. In the world of Nazi ideology, a black pilot defeating a German ace was not only unthinkable, it was a direct hit to the foundation of their beliefs. But the truth was already rising above those same skies. Behind Hall stood hundreds of men from Tuskegee, Alabama, the first generation of black military pilots in U.S. history. They had faced barriers that most Americans could hardly imagine, denied entry to flight schools, rejected from combat, and told again and again that they simply could not fly. Yet they trained anyway, harder, longer, and with more to prove than anyone else.
In the months ahead, these men would be tested in the most dangerous missions of World War II, and they would pass every one. 15,000 sorties, over 1,500 missions, more than 100 enemy aircraft destroyed, and a bomber protection record better than any white fighter group in the same theater. Each victory tore another hole in the idea of racial superiority. Each flight proved that courage and skill know no color. But that day in Sicily, the moment Charles Hall's guns opened fire, was where the myth first began to fall. The world might not have noticed yet, but history had already changed direction. Long before Charles Hall pulled the trigger over Sicily, another kind of battle was already being fought, one on the ground, against racism at home. In 1925, the U.S. Army War College published a report that said black soldiers were of inferior mentality and lacked the courage for combat leadership. This was not just opinion, it was official military policy. Black Americans could drive trucks, dig trenches, or clean uniforms, but they could not fly. The idea of a black man commanding a fighter plane seemed laughable to those in power. Yet across the country, small groups of dreamers refused to accept that. Eugene Bullard, an American who could not serve in his own country, went to France and became the first black fighter pilot in World War I. Bessie Coleman, shut out of every American flight school, also traveled to France and earned her pilot's license in 1921. In Chicago, the Coffey School of Aeronautics began training young black men to fly, proving that skill had nothing to do with skin color. By the late 1930s, the world was heading toward war again. Civil rights leaders like Walter White, A. Philip Randolph, and Judge William H. Hastie pushed the government to open the skies to everyone. Black newspapers like the Chicago Defender and the Pittsburgh Courier asked a simple question: how could America fight for freedom abroad while denying it to its own citizens? Under political pressure, Congress finally gave in. On April 3, 1939, Public Law 18 allowed one or more flight schools to train black pilots. It was a small, grudging step, but it cracked the door open. When Franklin Roosevelt ran for a third term, he needed black voters.
On January 16, 1941, the War Department announced something that had never existed before, an all-black flying unit. It would be called the 99th Pursuit Squadron. But the announcement came with a warning. Officials described it as an experiment, as if they already expected it to fail.
Then came Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., a quiet, disciplined officer who had survived 4 years of silence at West Point, where white cadets refused to speak to him outside of duty. Now, he was chosen to lead the experiment. 26 young pilots from Tuskegee, Alabama, would follow him into history. They trained in the Deep South, under the burning Alabama sun, in a country that still forced them to eat in separate cafeterias and sleep in separate barracks. But they didn't quit. Every takeoff was an act of defiance. Every landing was proof that they belonged in the sky. They were no longer asking for permission. They were preparing to fight for their country and for the right to be seen as equals.
In the spring of 1943, the 99th Fighter Squadron arrived in North Africa. They were ready to fight, but their white commander, Colonel William Momier, did not believe they could. He gave them only patrol missions over the sea, no real combat, no chance to prove themselves. The men waited, trained, and listened to the sound of other squadrons flying to glory. Their first mission came on June 2, 1943. The Tuskegee pilots flew old P-40 Warhawks over the Italian island of Pantelleria. Suddenly, German fighters appeared, the sky filled with twisting trails of smoke and gunfire. The 99th held formation, protecting the bombers. No planes were lost. The battle ended in a draw. But it showed one thing clearly: these pilots would not panic under fire.
A month later came the day that changed everything. July 2nd, 1943. Charles Hall was flying his 8th mission, escorting bombers over Sicily. 2 German Focke-Wulf 190s moved in for the kill. Hall turned his plane sharply, got behind one, and fired a long burst. The German fighter rolled and went straight into the ground. When Hall landed, the base erupted in cheers. Black ground crews who had endured months of insults finally had their answer. That kill was more than a victory. It was proof. The experiment had succeeded. But respect was slow to come. By early 1944, Colonel Momier sent a harsh report to Washington claiming that the 99th lacked aggressiveness and should be pulled from combat. The War Department began to consider ending the program. Then came Anzio. On January 27, 1944, German planes attacked Allied ships and troops near the beachhead. 15 pilots from the 99th took off in their worn P-40s to meet the enemy. The Germans flew faster, newer Focke-Wulfs, but this time it didn't matter. The Tuskegee pilots fought with skill and calm precision. In 2 days, they shot down up to 13 enemy planes. The victory stunned everyone. Washington ordered a review comparing the 99th with white squadrons. The results showed no difference in performance except one. The Tuskegee pilots had fought longer, harder, and with fewer resources. The battle at Anzio silenced the doubters. The men from Tuskegee had proven they could do more than just fly. They could win. Now the military could no longer hide them in the shadows. The next chapter would take them higher, into the skies of Europe, where they would become known by a new name, the Red Tails. In the spring of 1944, the Tuskegee pilots were no longer an experiment. They were the heart of a new unit,
the 332nd Fighter Group. 4 squadrons came together under one commander, Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr. Their mission was simple but critical: protect the big, slow bombers flying deep into enemy territory. Before every flight, Davis gave the same order: our job is not to be aces. Our job is to bring those bombers home. That idea became their rule. While other fighter pilots sometimes chased easy kills, the Red Tails stayed close to the bombers, no matter what. In June 1944, the Air Force gave every fighter group its own color marking. The 332nd painted the tails of their P-51 Mustangs bright red. From then on, bomber crews began to recognize them instantly. They didn't know the pilots were black. They only knew these escorts never abandoned them. Word spread quickly through the bomber units: if you can get the Red Tails, you're going to make it home. Their biggest test came on July 18, 1944. 66 Red Tails flew into Germany to meet bombers heading for a Luftwaffe base at Memmingen. The bombers arrived late. Davis had a choice: turn back or wait inside enemy airspace. He decided to stay. Moments later, almost 100 German fighters attacked. For 20 fierce minutes, the sky became chaos. The Red Tails fought outnumbered, protecting the bombers while dodging enemy fire from every direction. When it was over, 15 bombers had been lost, but the rest made it home. The Red Tails claimed 11 German kills that day, though they lost 3 of their own. Analysts later said Davis's decision had prevented a total disaster. By early 1945, the Red Tails were flying long missions across all of Europe. On March 24th, they faced a new and terrifying threat: the German jet, the Me-262. It could fly faster than any propeller plane on Earth. That morning, 43 Red Tails escorted bombers to Berlin. As the jets attacked, Lieutenant Roscoe Brown spotted one diving ahead. He climbed fast, fired 3 bursts, and watched the jet pilot bail out. 2 more Tuskegee pilots, Earl Lane and Charles Brantley, each shot down a jet that same day. 3 Me-262s destroyed in one battle. It was a record no other American group had ever matched. That mission earned the Red Tails a Distinguished Unit citation. More than that, it earned them something far greater: the respect of everyone who had ever doubted them. Not every mission ended in victory. Some Red Tails were shot down and captured. Lieutenant Alexander Jefferson was one of them. His plane was hit over southern France in 1944. When the Germans took him prisoner, he expected the worst. But in the POW camp, something unexpected happened. He was treated like every other captured American officer. White prisoners, many of them bomber crews, often came up to thank him. "You guys saved us," they told him. For Jefferson, the irony was painful. In a Nazi prison, he was treated more equally than in his own country. While the Germans knew exactly who the Red Tails were, many Americans still didn't. The Luftwaffe even had a name for them: Schwarze Vogelmenschen, Black Bird Men. In Germany, their reputation grew. In America, their achievements were often hidden or ignored. The War Department rarely talked about their success. In the segregated United States, the idea of black pilots outperforming white ones made too many people uncomfortable. But the bomber crews knew the truth. They called them Red Tail Angels. To those men, race didn't matter, only survival did. And the numbers backed it up. Bombers escorted by the Red Tails lost fewer planes than with any other fighter group. They flew more than 15,000 missions, destroyed over 100 enemy aircraft in the air, and hundreds more on the ground. Their record was unmatched. When the war ended, most Tuskegee Airmen came home quietly. There were no parades,
no TV interviews. Many could not even get jobs as commercial pilots. Some were told to their faces that America wasn't ready for a black man in the cockpit. Colonel Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., who had led them with calm determination, stayed in the Air Force. In 1954, he became the first black general in U.S. Air Force history. In 1948, President Harry Truman signed the order that finally ended segregation in the military. His decision was shaped in part by the proof the Red Tails had given, that discipline, courage, and excellence have no color. Recognition came slowly. Decades later, in 2007, President George W. Bush awarded the Tuskegee Airmen the Congressional Gold Medal. Only about 300 of the original men lived to see it.
Their story is no myth. It's written in numbers, in courage, and in the skies of Europe. 112 enemy planes destroyed in air combat. 3 German jets shot down in one day. 96 Distinguished Flying Crosses awarded. As Tuskegee Airman pilot Roscoe Brown said, "We didn't just fight the Germans, we fought ignorance, prejudice, and hatred, and we won all 3. The Tuskegee Airmen changed history, proving that when given the chance, greatness always rises." Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video, leave a comment, and check out more amazing history on our channel.